What makes a man suddenly commit to you? In this video, you will discover the answer to one of the most asked questions that I receive all the time, right? How do I turn this man around? How do I turn a frog into a prince? And you will see what you shouldn't do, right? Because that's actually gonna harm you long term. But before we do that, I'm Antia, founder and creator of the Magnetize Your Man method. And look, this is the channel where we magnetize your man so that the man you want, desires, and pursues you forever. Now, do me a favor, like, comment, subscribe, share with all of your friends so you get notified for more juicy videos coming your way. And if I was you, I would listen all the way until the very end, because a very surprising bonus for you that I promise you, you are not expecting. So let's first of all talk about what not to do if you want a man to commit to you. Number one, you don't want to put him under pressure, right? Okay, so you don't want to like nag him. And I'm like, okay, so where do we stand? And what's happening? And, like all the things, right? Like, number two, you don't want to like lay out like all your emotions, like all of it, right? Like, and I will actually go a little bit more into detail what you want to do instead, right? But you don't want to just like burden him with all your emotions, like overwhelming him basically, right? So that he's running the other direction. You also don't want to make him the source of your happiness. Meaning, when you come back home from hanging out with him, it feels empty. It feels meaningless. It feels shallow. Like, no. You don't want to do that. I will tell you what you want to do instead. You also don't want to become too other focused. You don't want to like participate all the time. Like, okay, oh, now he's at the baseball game. Oh, now he's at work. Oh, now he's at the gym. Oh, now he's right. So your girlfriends actually know more about him than they know about you, or that he actually knows about you, right? And the reason why is because you're focusing on him. Now, the problem with that is that he actually starts to take you for granted. So the last thing he's going to do is prioritize you, right? So don't give your power away. So here's what you want to do instead. 5 things you want to do if you want to make him suddenly commit to you. Number 5, radical self-focus. So, one thing that I see with the thousands of women that have come to me over the years is the lack of self-focus. There's so much other focusedness. There is so much, it's automatic, right? Like they really think about other people, other men all the time. And when I ask them, so what do you want? Like, how are you feeling? I don't know. I need to think about how I'm feeling. Like, okay, no, not a good thing, right? Because then the man is like, wait a minute. So the quality of men that you attract into your life is directly proportional to the relationship you have to yourself. So if you give all the energy away, if it's outward going, then the man is like, oh, okay, you're handing me a resume, a script, so to move the energy away from you because you're moving your own energy away from you, right? What you want to do is teach them radical self-focus. What that means is you actually are aware what you really need, right? You potentially also end dates early so that you can actually focus on yourself. You can journal. You can process the date. And I really mean that, girlfriend, right? Just like sitting down, breathing through it, connecting with yourself. And if you say right now, Antia, I don't even know what you're talking about, like, what do you mean connecting with myself? Then this one is for sure for you. Because if you don't even know what it means to connect to you, if you don't even know what that feels like, then and I invite you to practice radical self-focus. So what that really looks like is when you are on a date with a man, checking in with yourself. How embodied are you, right? Do you feel your butt in the chair? Do you feel your back leaning against the chair? Like, do you feel your feet firmly rooted on the ground? Are you breathing? Do you feel safe to breathe next to him, right? And then what starts to happen is he will actually like focus on you. And this really happened with one of my clients. When she started dating this guy, he actually didn't want to get married again. He didn't want to commit again. And I was like, let's just practice radical self-focus, right? Let's just focus on putting yourself first, doing what you want to do. And sure enough, a year later into them dating, he actually asked her like if she still wants to get married. And she said yes. So he gave her like this dream wedding. So I really believe it's totally possible for you to start practicing radical self-focus. Number 4 is release of attachment. Okay, so if you want to have infinite results, you have to release the attachment to the outcome. So what that means is you can commit to the process. One thing that my husband always says, right? Commit to the process, detach from the outcome. What do I mean by that? So you don't know what role this man plays in your life. You don't know if he's just a bridge builder. What if his best friend, true story, have several of my clients have experienced that, is actually the right guy for you, right? But you attach to the outcome. I don't want you to do that. I want you to like release the attachment, and you can even visualize, right? Like anchoring, unhooking. Like if you feel anchors in your heart or anchors in your belly or anchors in your throat or whatever it is, just unhook that, right? Release the attachment. And then what you want to do instead is commit fully to the process. So you're going on a date with this guy, be fully there 100%, but without expectation, because you can't have expectation. Look, there's this really great story of this couple that was interviewed in a Cosmopolitan. And they were asked, like, why, how did you guys become married? Like, what's your story, right? And they were actually saying, the reason why we actually had the space to fall in love is because we treated every date like our first date. So there was never an assumption that there's going to be another date. So they're committed to the process, showed up fully without any expectation that it's going to be another date. And because of that, there was so much freedom to choose. Look, men love to choose. They love to have the sense that they're leading their life, right? And when they have that choice, that's when they then really commit to you, even out of the sudden. Number 3 is he will commit to you if he's afraid to lose you. Now, true story. When I started dating my husband, Brody, we were like seeing each other maybe for like 6 weeks, right? And he, he didn't really say like, I love you or things like that. He did tell me that I was the girl of his story, but he wasn't like, he wasn't like super emotionally like expressive. As a matter of fact, when he asked me out on dates, it sounded like he was just telling me where he is. Like, it's just kind of like an update, I'm like, okay, well, good for you, you know what I mean? Enjoy the bar tonight, enjoy this piece or this piece tonight. And then later on, he told me, well, I ask you out on a date all the time. I'm like, really? When? And then he would say, that was him asking me out, right? It was like him saying where he is. So what did I do? Well, I was in Hawaii, right? And I actually chose for the first time to be deliberately single, because I felt like God was like literally inviting me to be single. Like every time I tried something, it didn't work. I was the eternal single. My friends were making fun of me. Nothing ever worked out. My longest situationship, I call it, was 2.5 months. I'm not even kidding you, right? Like it's 10 weeks, and it was actually just 10 weekends, right? Because I just saw this guy on the weekend because he lived so far away. So I was seeing other guys. So one Saturday, he took me to the beach, and we were going to the same workshop the night before. That was actually like a weekly workshop. And I had like one of the guys that I was seeing pick me up from that workshop. And my husband said when we were at the beach the next day, who was that friend that picked you up from the workshop, And I'm like, oh, I mean, it's nothing to, like, nothing to hide, right? It's a guy, Oh, did you stay overnight and all the things? So he started to ask all those questions. I'm like, wait a minute. That's like really like asking a lot of questions. Like, I'm like, you do know I'm seeing other guys, right? And he's like, I don't. So there was like the fear of losing me, right? And that immediately had him fully commit, and tell me that he has feelings of love for me. And like totally, I knew where I was at with him. And obviously 8 months later, he proposed to me as well. So that's what you want to really think about, right? It's not like, I don't want you to intentionally date other guys, but just live your life, right? Like, don't have him take you for granted that he doesn't have to do anything. He doesn't have to invest in anything. But no, you continue to live your life. And you may be there tomorrow, you may be not. He needs to have that kind of sense without playing games though. Number 2 is speak your truth unapologetically. So I love this, right? Because it really shows confidence. If you just really say, you know what? Can I be really honest with you? How, when we had this conversation last week about whatever it was, our beliefs or values or whatever it is, like you fill in the blank, right? Work. You made this comment, and I noticed that the impact of that was like I had like spit in my stomach. But you speak your truth unapologetically, and what you do in that moment, you build intimacy, you build deep levels of trust, right? You also build admiration from the man because he really admires you for being so courageous. I'm like, this woman has guts to talk to me like that, right? And also, you actually build a deeper connection because you maintain rapport. Because what you think, what you say, and what you do stays in alignment. Like you are actually true to yourself, right? You're like, you thought about it, and then you actually expressed it to him. Versus you thought about it, and then you held it in and you told it to your girlfriend. And then it's all distorted and you start acting weird towards someone. He's like, something is off, something is weird. Like, what happened? Did I do anything wrong? Is she no longer interested? No, you speak your truth unapologetically, gracefully, but unapologetically. That will make him respect you so much. And if he already likes you, then that will be a perfect recipe for him to commit to you. And number 1 is a positive relationship to your weakness. Now, what do I mean by that? The night before my husband and I got married, we did something called a shadow ceremony, okay? So a shadow ceremony is really saying, what are your weaknesses, right? What are you judging yourself? Well, I can be a bitch sometimes, or I can be harsh sometimes, I can be mean sometimes, I can be selfish sometimes, I can be arrogant sometimes. I mean, fill in the blank, all the things. I can be manipulative sometimes, right? So we actually build this positive relationship to our quote unquote weaknesses, right? The things, the insecurities we had, and the judgments that we had. And then we were announcing the biggest one in our actual wedding. Okay, and you can actually find it on the YouTube channel here, by the way, too. Our wedding vows, our shadow vows, all the things. And it was very powerful, right? Because it really set us free. And the first time I actually told my husband I had a positive relationship to my weakness was when I told him that I have an anxious attachment style. And he's like, oh, that's cool. Tell me more. What's that all about? And he loved it, right? Because it showed awareness, it showed ownership, but it also showed, wow, she's like really having a positive, empowering relationship to what she judges inside of herself, like her anxiousness, right? And I told him, this is what happens, and so on. So, like we talked about, like what makes a man commit to you. So now I would love to hear from you in the comment section. What makes someone unforgettable to you, right? Like what makes you commit to a man? And for those of you who stayed until the very end, here is your surprise bonus: tension management. Okay, this is like so magnetic. This is so charismatic because tension occurs when we have a vision of how we want something to go, but we don't know what the other person really thinks. So there's tension, right? Because we're in the unknown. But like, let's say, even when you flirt with someone, you speak metaphorically to them, right? Maybe you talk about coffee, but you're actually talking about kissing. You know what I mean? It's funny. Like, oh, this coffee is just a really special mix. It's a special alchemy here, right? So special ingredients. And so you have this like, but then you're like, wow, I don't know, is that really landing for him? And there's sort of like this tension. And then what women sometimes do is they sort of release the tension prematurely, right? They just, laugh or just like, oh, just kidding. The shame shields are coming up. And they do this on dates too, right? They share something vulnerably, and instead of taking a breath, yeah, it can be selfish sometimes, right? But they just like laugh it away. Now, the awesome thing is when you tension management, it's for one, it's like very flirtatious and magnetic. And the man feels like you're holding something. It's almost like you're the secret keeper. And they're like, what is she holding? Like, what is happening in her mind, in her body? I want to know. And the more you hold, the more magnetic you get, right? You have sort of create this mystery, this open loop in a man. And he will want to know, well, like, who are you? What are you all about? You're driving me nuts, right? In a really good way. And he will commit to you because he will like not know what else to do with himself. Now, if you want to discover a powerful psychological trick on how to make any man desire you, then hop on over to triggerhisdesire.com. Link is also in the description, comments below. And if you haven't done so already, watch next. When a man deeply loves you, he will start saying these 5 things. Lots of love to you, ladies, and I will talk to you in the next video. Bye-bye.